I think the reason that the Art of Noise ended up being a so-called group of sounds was the fact that none of us could sing, and we weren't really prepared to stand up in front of a microphone and make complete fools of ourselves, unlike many people I might mention. We do use the odd lyrical motif.
When the Art of Noise first started, they probably needed me more than I needed them, because I was the only person in the ZTT building who knew a crotchet from a boiled egg. And so they decided that possibly they could use me in this strange, esoteric collection of people and sounds. My first introduction to music was through my father's collection of 78 records. Well, I mean, he hasn't got 78 records, but he has records that revolve at 78 RPM. He's one of the few people who still has these. And these included such various things as the March from Aida, Oklahoma, and Danny Kaye. And I suppose really my early musical influences you could date back to that time. And then a very important event occurred when I was about 7. We had a blank wall in the dining room, and so my mother decided we'd buy a piano. And we bought a piano for £3. And I started having piano lessons.
On stage, we use no tapes, and at the show we do and we are seeing is entirely live. It's played by musicians who have the assistance of modern technology in as much as they are able to play the sounds that we recorded. But I must stress, and I will, believe me, that they're all playing live, and when they hit something, although it may not be the drum itself that sounds, they are actually playing each individual thing. So in as much as it is complex, it is straightforward. The Fairlight is a rather wonderful Australian computer which enables one to store sounds on floppy disk, which one records from the real world, for example, birds singing, cars crashing the note of a piano, and then bring these various sounds up onto a keyboard and make music from that.
I'm not really too worried about the barriers between jazz and classical music and pop music. It's all music to me. If it's good, it's good, and if it's bad, it's probably sell lots of records. No, if it's good, and if it's bad, it's bad. I started off as a keyboard player and became an arranger somewhat by accident, because I was playing some session somewhere and somebody said to me, "Can you do a brass arrangement for this track?" And I never had done before, and I'd never thought about doing those kind of things. But I said, yes, I suppose I can. And I went back and listened to all my Earth, Wind and Fire records and ripped off a few licks and became an arranger. The first successful record that I got involved with was The Lexicon of Love, ABC's record in 1982. And it's actually very hard to get started in music, but once you've played on or arranged a hit record, then the phone tends to keep ringing. And after ABC, I worked with a lot of other people. I did arrangements for Wham and Paul McCartney, Blancmange, Lloyd Cole, lots of people really.
We write our material in various forms. Sometimes it might be at home, and then take the work to the studio and finish it off, throw it away. You might get an idea playing croquet or tennis. The influences are varied, as are the recording procedures themselves. Anne and I were in the studio kicking around an idea of a bass riff in the key of F. And it was sounding remarkably good. And after a couple of days, we played it to a couple of people, and they said, "That's been written already by someone called H. Mancini, Hank to his friends." And we went, it did sound rather familiar. We phoned up Dwayne Eddy, who was living in Nashville at the time, and said, would you like to come over to England and play on our new version of Peter Gunn? And he very bravely, and probably rationally, said yes. His reaction to the backing track when he came into the studio was very encouraging, and he took an immediate liking to it. The fact that it was electronic and modern, I don't think bothered him either way. It had feel, it had precision and good form, so it stood up in its own right as a musical piece. We all met Max Headroom in a cafe once. He was waiting tables, And he recognised us. He's one of the very, very few people who've actually recognised the three members of the Art of Noise as they really are. And he came up to us and said, "Hi guys, I think your record Paranormal is fantastic, and I've got this lyric." And we laughed because he couldn't sing, he couldn't dance, he couldn't write lyrics, and he was totally talentless. But upon reflection, we decided he was in fact the perfect artist in contemporary society because he had no talent. And so he then came round to the studio and we recorded him onto Paranormal. It became a monstrous record. Monstrous. Very flat and black, of course, but it was monstrous. The idea that to remain non-commercial is a viable way of existing in the 1980s is unacceptable, I'm afraid. We worked with Dwayne Eddy and Max Headroom because we felt that they would offer us something in as much as we could offer them. I don't think there was necessarily any commercial viability road in. It just all seemed to work out rather nicely in the end.
We planned to do a tour because of our essentially contrary nature, I think. Because it was the last thing that people thought the Art of Noise would do, a live tour, then that was obviously what we wanted to do. And so we took a completely live band on the road and toured from one side of America to the other and then to Japan and then ending up in England.
The Art of Noise are very different from many, many groups currently making records because we know what we're doing, and many of them don't, which is why they employ us to make their records for them. I have nothing more to say on this matter.